let's bring in Batangas 2nd District Congresswoman Gerville Luistro, who is also sitting as one of the House's impeachment prosecutors. Good evening, Congresswoman Luistro. Can you hear me okay?
Good evening, and thank you for having me in One News, the big story.
Thank you for accepting our invite. I know you are busy and you're on your way to somewhere. Um, First off,
Yes.
let me have you react to this latest complaint that Vice President Sara Duterte filed. They are saying the House's impeachment complaint was defective, citing Article 11 of the Constitution and the fact that, according to them, this forced complaint violated the one-year the one-year rule rather of impeach officials. You're only allowed to file a complaint against an impeached official once in a year.
Okay, let me discuss about the salient arguments they mentioned in the petition for issuance of temporary restraining order and permanent injunction, okay? First, ang sabi po nila, we did not follow the rules on verification. It is clear in our Constitution that the Congress shall promulgate its own rules on impeachment. And to be precise, we followed word for word the rules of the 19th Congress of the Philippines in as far as the verification is concerned. Second, they also made mention that the verification was only inserted days after the filing in the Senate. Hindi po ito totoo. As a matter of fact, during the caucus, which is the same time when the 215 members of the House affixed their signatures, the verification page is already incorporated in the complaint. As a matter of fact, it was on the same date, it was on the same occasion kung saan nanumpa po ang ating mga kongresista kaugnay ng verification na kinakailangan dito sa impeachment complaint na ito. They also made mention that the members of the House were not able to study carefully the articles of impeachment. Let us all be reminded, most of the grounds ay subject matter po ng investigation in the Quadcom and even in the Committee on Good Government. I wish to share that as early as last year, when the 3 impeachment complaints were filed, nagkaroon na po ng individual evaluation ang ating mga kongs. And it was because of the intercession of the political parties that made us came up with this 4th impeachment complaint to be able to catch up with the limited number of sessions that were remaining, saving the impeachment process from the alleged 1-year prescription period. No? And fourth, ang sabi po nila, the Vice President was denied due process. And we beg to disagree. As a matter of fact, a summons will be issued to her. He will be asked to answer, and she will be given time to present her evidence. This is what due process is all about. And finally, about the 1-year prohibition period. Ang sabi po ng batas, 1 impeachment only every year. It was not made mention that it should be resolved within the same year. In other words, in our humble opinion, yun pong final namin, or even if we consider the first 3 impeachment complaints, although hindi naman po ito na-refer ng Office of the Secretary General. If we will be referring to the first 3 impeachment complaints, the 1-year prohibition will apply until November of 2025. But if we will be referring to the 4th impeachment complaint, which I believe is a consolidation of the 3 impeachment complaints, the prohibition period will take effect in February of 2026. Yun pong sinasabing 1-year prohibition period. It means 1 year from the date of filing. It does not mean within the year the same was filed.
Congresswoman,
Yes, ma'am?
Congresswoman, I just want to clarify. So, ang nangyari, no, the House decided, no, na instead of sending the first 3 complaints, impeachment complaints to the Justice Committee, et cetera, that whole process na, because you recognize that there is a time constraint at that time, na paubos na yung session days, the decision was para umabot doon sa time constraint, ay gumawa na lang ng 4th impeachment complaint. Sorry, I'm just clarifying this because it was not clear to us in the beginning, no, na this was in fact how things happened.
That is one of the considerations of the several considerations. Because we have to understand that the only occasion when we can do away the referral to the Justice Committee is if the complaint is supported by 1/3 of the members of the House at least. Yun pong 3 impeachment complaints na nauna. Wala po siyang endorsement ng 1/3 of the members of the House, which means it needs to be referred to the Justice Committee, which will hold hearing until 60 days to be able to resolve whether the impeachment complaint is resolved or not. Second, ma'am, may observation po tayo that the first complaint is too long. I believe it's 23 articles, while the second and the third are too short. So for us to be able to catch up with the timeline by way of transmitting it through the endorsement of at least 1/3 of the members of the House and to address the either too many articles or too few articles of impeachment as observed in the first 3 complaints, we came up with a decision, come up with a 4th impeachment complaint, and save the impeachment process from the possible prescription period, and that is 1 year.
Can you
Yes,
shed...
ma'am?
Yeah, gets naman po. Pero another clarification, no, like at which point, how did this timeline rolled out? No? Because the first complaint was filed, I think, December 2. I remember it was my mom's birthday. And then there were basically 2 months. When in that 2 months, and the Christmas break, happened, when did the Congress decide na ganito na lang gawin natin para umabot? Kasi medyo mahaba din po yung 2 months.
I recall, ma'am, that prior to the drafting of the 4th complaint, nagkakaroon po ng sariling evaluation ng mga Kongs. May mga meeting ang mga political parties until before the termination or the last session, should I say. Through the intercession of all the political parties in the House, we were able to come up with the 215 signatories endorsing the 4th impeachment complaint. Although prior to that, there is a consensus already to draft the impeachment complaint. And of course, we will be able to confirm that 1/3 signatures of the members of the House only upon signing. And on that occasion, the last session before we took the recess, doon po namin na-confirm that 215 of us are endorsing and supporting the impeachment complaint.
Congresswoman Luistro, I take your points. However, on the other side of it, the petitioners, the other petition, which is being led by Attorney Israelito Torion, says that you are going by technicality. For instance, he says the 4th impeachment complaint, which was signed by 215 House members, as you said, that's already taking action on the 3 initial complaints, and that you have committed grave abuse of discretion by deliberately delaying the transmittal of the first 3 complaints. That's the crux of their argument here.
We did not delay, ma'am. We have to understand that Congress is a collegial body. I cannot decide alone. The Good Government Committee cannot decide alone. This is a collegial body that needs the collegial decision. 306 po ang members ng House. As a general rule, we need the majority. And for the purpose of the impeachment case, we need at least 1/3. Of course, we have to come up first with our respective evaluation. And then we have to go through our respective political parties meeting until all the political parties come up with their own concession.
You don't believe...
So I
Yeah.
beg to disagree, ma'am, that we delay. Because since the filing of the first 3 impeachment complaints, nagkaroon na po ng mga sariling pag-aaral. And we really have to take time before we are able to come up with a collegial decision because of the fact that we are 306 and we need one third of us to endorse this impeachment complaint.
Okay, Congressman, pag-usapan naman natin yung timeline as far as the Senate is concerned in convening an impeachment as an impeachment court. Sinabi po kanina ni Senate President Cheese Escudero, he doesn't see any significant public clamor for them to convene. Do you agree with that?
With all due respect kay Senate President, no? But andito po tayo sa ground. The House members are in the ground, no? While it is true that the proper way of manifesting their desire for the Senate to convene as an impeachment trial is by writing the Senate President and by way of petition for mandamus, just like the one which is pending already before the Supreme Court. I myself and even the other Kongs can attest that a lot of people in our district are all waiting as to when the Senate will convene as an impeachment court. However, at the end of the day, we always recognize, the Congress or the lower house always recognize the authority of the impeachment court. And of course, that is the Senate of the Philippines, no? To be particular, the 23 senators, no? With all due respect sa ating Senate President, we have a different opinion on the matter.
So as we speak, there are at least 2 petitions asking the Supreme Court to stop the impeachment proceedings on grounds that the House filed a quote-unquote defective complaint. Do you yourself believe, and you're a lawyer, Congresswoman Luistro, do you believe that the Supreme Court has jurisdiction over this?
Yes, of course. My understanding about that is while as a general rule we follow the separation of power, kapag mayroong ambiguity, kapag mayroong mga allegations of abuse, we have to apply the principle of checks and balances. And this is one way of applying the principle of checks and balances to make sure that there are no lapses, there are no neglect of duty, there are no grave abuse of discretion if the Senate decide to convene on June 2 or on a certain date depending on their discretion. And with respect to the prosecutor, with respect to the impeachment complaint, of course, they have all the right and the discretion to go to the Supreme Court to question whether there's basis to proceed to an impeachment trial, no? Lahat po ng mga available remedies to the Supreme Court, it is my humble opinion. This is part of the principle of checks and balances to make sure that the respective agencies and branches of the government are doing the right thing in as far as addressing the impeachment complaint is concerned.
But I think the Council of Vice President Sara Duterte, who spoke at an impeachment panel this afternoon that I attended, her point being that these petitions need to be decided on before the trial can commence or even the court can convene. Do you think that's the case?
Definitely. As a matter of fact, that is the nature of the issuance of ATRO or temporary restraining order, no? It is my humble submission as well that this petition has to be decided and resolved by the Supreme Court even before we convene the impeachment court. I mean for the Senate, before they convene the impeachment court.